but they had decided to get it in the middle because then they put the aisle down the middle for.
We can change any of that anytime
Yeah, that's
if we wanted.
a clear one would be nice.
Apple's coming out with augmented reality goggles. We can try that.
I agree.
Let's do it.
I like the idea of just getting the glass top table. Oh, sorry.
Ready? Welcome, everyone, to the Finance Committee meeting for March 16, 2022. It is approximately 6:30 p.m. Let's go with the roll call, Ms. Belcher.
Joe St. John.
Here.
Damon Campbell is absent. Tim Gose.
Here.
Murray Neff.
Here.
John Grumney.
Here.
Dave Martin.
Here.
Cindy Cooper. Here. 6 present.
Thank you. Second item, minutes from our last meeting of February the 16th.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Martin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Grumney. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Kathy.
David Martin.
Yes.
John Grumney.
Yes.
Tim Gose.
Yes.
Joe St. John.
Yes.
Murray Neff.
Yes.
Cindy Cooper.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, let's go to the mowing bids. This is an annual contract. First impression is expiring very shortly. In your packet there, I think Kathy has put together for you. You'll see their bid came in at 55,000. Actually, I think 58,000.
58,500.
Yeah, that is up from 55,000 expiring amount. The other bid that we received was from McRae at roughly 82,000 per year. Seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah. I'd like to see if you guys would approve going out, including not only 22, but 23 and 24 at a 5% increase each year. And then we don't have to do this until 2020.
Is that what First Impressions is proposing?
Yes.
A 3-year contract?
3 year, 5% each year.
How long has it been since we did 3 or even 2?
I don't think we have.
Yeah. Do you recall, Mr. Mayor, why we were sticking with the annual instead of a 2 or 3?
I don't, but this is, this is a fairly new program. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I want to say it was like 4 years ago, we were doing all this in-house, so.
And I think it had something to, and I'm not positive, I believe it had something to do with how we requested the bids.
Yeah, I think so too.
That we weren't allowed to extend it. This year, we had the option to extend it.
I don't think there's any ordinance preventing us from approving. We can always make a new one, right?
Yeah, you guys.
Pass a new one. What's your thoughts, committee, on going with a 3-year at a 5% annual increase? That'd be roughly 58,000. 5% of that would be roughly 2,500, 2,800 more next year.
2,900, but yeah.
What was the increase from the last year to this year?
3,000, a little over 3,000 now.
3,000?
55 to 58. So
Okay.
that's
So
more
it's kind of
than
right, almost like right in line with what they're asking now.
Mhm.
I would support it, especially given the vendor that we're talking about.
They've been pretty solid. I don't think
Yeah.
there's been any complaints,
Yeah, they're good.
negative feedback.
Brad seems to be happy with them. They seem
Brad's
to be
happy.
responsive to them, and they're, respectful if there's they need to adjust their schedule.
Is the contractor provide you with the latitude to renew on an annual basis, or are you approving a 3-year contract?
I don't think we developed the contract yet.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in there.
I thought they did it. They had an option in here for a 3-year contract, 5% each year.
Well, the option should be yours, not theirs.
First impression, I'd like to propose a 3-year contract for the services and doing it at 5%, but it's.
It would be our option, and we
want to have a cancellation clause for cause in there.
Mhm. Could we pass this via motion and a vote?
I think that might be a Mr. Bream question because there are some issues with overlapping the commitment of spending money before it's our money. And I know we had issues in the past where committing to spend money next year when we haven't collected any of next year's money yet is a bit of an issue.
And we have this on our agenda at the end, so we'll get Mr. Bream's input.
Yep.
Okay. If that's okay with the rest of the committee, we'll bring it up in council. Okay, let's move on then. Number 4 on my list, I have compensation study. Mr. Piles.
Thanks,
Go ahead.
Mr. Goodis. I apologize that I did not have the ability to get all this information in front of you. It's been a dynamic work process. But something that I observed even when I was your zoning inspector and then coming in, getting feedback from your service superintendent and your wastewater chief operator was their challenges in retaining and recruiting people. Our compensation levels were just not competitive to the area. I don't make a decision based upon somebody's observations. I went out and used the Morpsey. It's 2019 data for Morpsey, 2022 budgeted data for us. But I went out, if you go to the second page, which says Morpsey 2021, just skip over the chapter 139 piece, identified comparable communities, eliminated cities of Columbus and Dublins and places like that to get a little more representative of the labor market we compete in. What I found was that on the comparables, we are anywhere from 12 to 27% below market rates currently. Part of the low, the 27% part is with the wastewater plant, we've had turnover. We've got an employee who's been tenured for about 1.5 years and another one that's just been here a half year. So that kind of does push that number down. But the thing that I noticed was if you look at the green highlight on the salary range minimum for the comparables plant worker, it's 2046. And right now our average is below that number, which again kind of reinforces the fact that that we need to address the compensation in the wastewater plant. Found a similar situation, but not quite as severe in the services department. And again, these are the folks that plow your snow, maintain a lot of grass, get the leaves, and keep a wastewater plant running. They're also, they were below the average annual salary for those comparable communities. And so from that, and that one page is just kind of a re-summary, a little graphic of where our wages compare to that and those percentage differences. We began to work on the chapter 139 of our codified ordinances. That's where we set the salary ranges for all of our positions. That's the page that's right behind my memo. We highlighted the ones that aren't changing. A lot of them changed ever so slightly. Some of them are on the minimum range to make sure that we're, some of our jobs, we had minimum ranges that we couldn't even use and get anywhere close to being competitive. So we've raised those. They're still below many of the comparable communities, but at least we were able to raise those or propose raising those we also raised the maximums ever so slightly, usually about $2 an hour, or $1 an hour, depending on which position it was. We've had the challenge again of recruitment. We've had the challenge again of retaining. Turnover is a costly proposition. We invest time and money recruiting, hiring, and then we get to the training portion, and especially Dale's positions are very much OJT, on the job training related, where he goes through a set of skills and tasks with them that usually starts with the sampling piece of the job and then gets them to the point where they're understanding our pumps and the control systems related to those, works them into troubleshooting. But we spend a lot of time on somebody, maybe 6 months. We get them to the point where Dale is comfortable that they can do some specific tasks, and at that point, we lose them. So I would ask that we have a discussion about this. Certainly ask any questions, digest it, and then hopefully come to a decision point where you would ask us to update the 139 plan to reflect some of the compensation data we've been able to collect. And with that, I will take questions, or we can revisit at another time, but we would like to move this on. Our usual process is looking at annual compensation raises in April. And so we're reaching that point where we would like to be doing that.
That's right.
What's the actual change? I'm reading the proposed change for wastewater, and I can't tell like what we're at now and what the change is. Are we saying 18 to 25 is the new range that you're proposing?
So we have, let me jump the sewer. Yeah, that would be right now for an attendant one, which is kind of somebody that doesn't come in with any skills. Our current starting point is 16. We usually start about 18. Top end is 1950. So that would move to the entry level, which is more reflective of the offers we've been making, and then bumps the top end up to 22. Similar with the attendant 2, which would be someone that actually had a license. 1951, moving that to 2201. That's a $2.50, I believe. And then the top end moving $3. And again, that's the maximum that can be paid within that job description.
The main place I see us competing though is like the county primarily. And the county is, I'm kind of just doing the rough math in my head, but something like $22 to $32, something like that. I could be off a little bit. Maybe it's 21 to 31.
Yes.
You talking about the plant attendant worker one?
Yeah, I was looking at plant workers.
Can't work.
Mhm.
What I typically hear is county's always $5 higher than us, and we're not going up $5. We're kind of splitting the difference between where the county is, and we're still going to be lower than the county, right?
Yeah, we will be. Yeah, it looks like the county tops out at 29 or so, and we're at 27. So
Yeah, just looking at the maximum current columns versus the maximum proposed. I think you're right, Mr. Mayor. It's roughly between $2 and $3.
City of Westerville starts at like 28. That's our next closest neighbor here. And goes up to $75,000 a year for a plant worker. I think the problem with, and first of all, this needed to be done. Great job, Daryl. Great job, Steve. We needed to talk about this.
Mhm.
I think the thing when we take the law of averages across all these different municipalities, I think there should be much more of a weighting on like the geographic area, like Johnstown, Westerville, the county. Those are kind of the main players right around here. I mean, people will drive to Columbus for $10 more. I guess what I'm trying to say, and this is not coming off the right way, is I think we're heading in the right direction. I don't know that we've gone all the way where we may need to go to get us in a position to offset all of the things that you're talking about. I think the labor market is so crazy right now. I don't see that slowing down. If we're going to make an adjustment, I'd hate to put our ceiling on, 23, 25. Are we really going to hire at that? I don't know. But what if we need to? We've got 3 people down at the wastewater treatment plant now. We're getting ready to double our capacity in a year and a half. And our average tenure is about 4 years. And that's with a guy who's been here 30 years, so I know you guys are taking a very prudent look at this. I just don't know that we've gone high enough on it. And you tell me I'm wrong on that, and I'll back off.
I won't tell you that you're wrong on that.
Okay.
I tried to be conservative and take a bite of it and try to improve the situation. But
Right.
yeah, I think you could justify putting another couple bucks in that top end for both of those jobs.
I
And
think so too.
probably also within the service department.
Yeah, I agree. Round numbers, I think you're about right. I think we're about $2 low on the min and the max to get us. We're not going to compete with Westerville. Maybe for quality of working in a small town or less traffic, something may attract them, but they're always going to be higher than us. But the county right down the road, I think we've got to. I mean, they're our friends, but they're our competition too in the job market. That's for sure.
And Delaware's right there, actually more aggressive than Westerville
In which
on the minimum. On the plant worker, they're at 66 current now, but 47 to 74. So we would be competitive on the low end, but yes, again, probably that $2 situation there.
Have you looked at, Steve, if we go with your recommendation, just the recommendation, how that affects payroll expense rest of the year based on what you might be thinking about for raises?
It's because the low number of employees that we have, it's not dramatic. The other piece of our budget is both of those departments have budgeted unfilled positions, and we, once we address wages, we'll start to make more progress there. Right now, we're battling just to stay at our current levels of employment. So there is room in the budget in terms of those. I think each department has 2 or 3. Is that accurate, Kathy? Unfilled positions.
The other thing to think about is I know every organization's going through this, and there's this concept called compression. When you elevate the wage and you're bringing in people starting at, I don't know, $20 an hour with no skill, and you've got somebody making now, $20.50 with 5 years experience. I think we need to account for the compression aspect as well, because you don't want to, the last thing you want to do is disengage your people who have really, held the ship together.
Yep, I agree. And that's once we have these ranges to work with, there will be some 2s and 3, maybe more dollar an hour wage increases that I will get those sheets to you, and hopefully you'll concur.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think so too. We can circle back with this at our next meeting. Is that still enough time?
Or if you would, yeah, we can. If you would like to see those ranges move another 2 on the bottom end and the top end, we'll have that ordinance for you at the next meeting, and that'll allow us to proceed.
On April 6th.
Yes,
That's enough time still.
it is.
I just like to add some commentary. Where I work, we just went through this process. It was about a 5-month process with our board, and this takes a lot of work. So both of you, this is really good stuff. And I'd have to say your thought process and what you're doing is right in line with the same thing we heard and what we discovered with ours. So you guys are right in line, and compression is a real thing. So we did some mid-year bumps for people to get them further up in their pay grade. But yeah, finding the skill set is very difficult. You know, our competition is other retirement systems, just like other cities and things. So it's real. And with inflation and the cost of everything going up, everyone feels the pinch. And if you can go to Target, make $20 an hour working at Target, why not? Versus makes sense.
I drive by the Kroger warehouse and I think that it's almost like a gas price sign and it's up to 25.5 or somewhere there now.
Yeah.
Entry level to go there, so. Okay, well, with your approval, we will bring an amendment to the 139 ordinance that has these pay ranges with the exception of the maintenance workers in both departments, $2 on the top and bottom ends increases.
Perfect.
Yes, I would agree. Any other commentary on that?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Piles.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the next item on the agenda. I believe that is the grant monies discussion. I think this refers to the COVID payments that we received. I guess we received one 6 months ago, 330 some thousand. We got a second one coming for roughly the same amount any day now, supposedly.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Mayor and Kathy and Steve have more info on that. You want to go? Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so this is the American Recovery Act plan. I think it's called, also referred to as ARPA. There are some stipulations as to what we can utilize this for. One thing that Steve and I have been talking about for a little while is how can we use this to really, take advantage of the opportunity and stay within the bounds of what it's utilized for. So, Steve, initially, I think there's going to be a portion that we potentially use for what I would call loss recovery or something of that nature. But we also want to be really forward thinking. One particular way we can do that is potentially utilize it for infrastructure improvements. There's on Cheshire Road, at the end of the road, there's a little fenced in area and we have a pump station that's old and it's pretty close to capacity, at least we believe it is. And we think we may be able to bite off a chunk of, we're not going to bite off a chunk of sewer, obviously, Murray. But what we are going to do is we can maybe make some headway on expanding our sewer network. It alleviates capacity issues. We really want to drag the sewer north. The other, I think, piece when explaining it is there's a direct revenue source associated with sewer. So it's not necessarily a sunk cost.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice to, put a fountain on the square or something, but I think it's also easy to say we're putting money back into the business like the private sector would say, and allowing for good, smart growth that doesn't burden the existing tax base.
That lift station has been a challenge to developing some of the lands in the area. So solving that problem then opens up more opportunities for both growth and revenue enhancement for the community. So yeah, I would advocate that we seriously consider investing that money in our sewer system. And it's one of the 3 or 4 areas that they highlight that you can do.
Is there a stipulation on when we need to utilize it or have it appropriappropriated?
Daryl's chomping at the bit. Oh, plenty of time. Okay.
Because of our agreement with the county for providing sanitary for some areas outside the city, that that lift station that you're talking about would have been the main way through for some stuff coming from up near Carter's Corners Road.
Right.
But it's not enough of a lift station to be able to do that. So are we going to look at rerouting what's going to that and go a different direction with it, or has that been looked at yet?
Briefly, it's been looked at. Mr. Parkinson can probably go, this is a pretty big discussion.
It's been looked at much more than briefly. I've got
I just don't know how much
pages
into
of studies and
detail you wanna
maps
go.
on how we serve everything west of the high school, basically, in Kentner Parkway and Foreman's Track and all that. And
You
that's,
have your thumb on the button, in other words, of how the best way to go for that.
I would more characterize it that I've got a firm grasp of the tiger's tail. And the Little Walnut Creek Interceptor Sewer is the first leg in solving this whole, or putting together this puzzle. And the second leg is, as the mayor sort of alluded to, and those that know what he was talking about got it, and the rest of you probably haven't got a clue, but he talked about extending sewers. Well, the second leg of Little Walnut Creek Interceptor Sewer could go up and intercept this pump station and make it kind of go away so that we eliminate the capacity issue with the pump station. That second leg is a piece of work. There's a lot of property involved, and it's not an easy get. It could take years to get that done. So the first step might be a temporary upgrade to the lift station, a rerouting of the force main. And I think that's a great idea to put that out there, because that is, and as Mr. Piles noted, that has been the limiting factor in all of our conversation for the Foreman track, Mr. Weiler's track, the Facemeyers have some property up there under a different name. All of that property would like to do, and Mr. Newman's track.
Mm-hmm.
All those properties want to do something,
Right.
but we've got no sewer for them.
It would be, I would consider definitely the linchpin. It's going to be, it is a bottleneck right now. I mean, by the definition of the word, it is. We're not able to expand north without doing something on Cheshire Road.
From a secondary item on the list, have you given any thought to street maintenance, potentially using it for that or anything else at this point?
Unfortunately, I don't think
You
that's
use it for that?
allowable. I think you might be able to make new street, but you can't maintain old street. And I don't even know if you could.
It's kind of like,
make
it's
new
kind of,
street.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Jerry.
So I'm just dealing with this issue in my other community. So one thing you can do is you can take all of the ARPA funds as a loss allowance. Once you take it as a loss allowance, it basically frees it up of any encumbrances. So at that point, you really could use it for virtually anything. And our amount, it sounds like it's well below the $10 million federal threshold. So, I mean, that's a way to be a little bit more flexible with it, although then we not being responsible.
Loss allowance.
Loss allowances, I try to be really clear on this. A loss allowance is basically saying the government allowed communities to say, hey, we're not going to scrutinize anything under what you consider a $10 million loss. And so like the city of Columbus could probably quantify this pretty easily by saying there's a bunch of people not working here and businesses were closed. You know, we had $20 million loss because of COVID. And the government would say, you can go up to 10 million. Well, since ours is only 766,000, technically, we could just say we lost $766,000 worth of revenue, or it cost us $766,000 more. You know, the equation of COVID made life hard, and the government said that's allowed. We could do that, but what I think we'll run into is I think it will blend into the general fund. And we could use it for really anything we wanted. But I think the intent is kind of clear on this, that, you know, take advantage of the opportunity. Steve, I'm not saying this eloquently.
No, I know. Yeah.
We could claim it as a loss allowance, but basically we move it to the general fund and then it's just padding the fund. I think we can use it pretty in a targeted way. at this point to a project and say, listen, we're using this money for good and there's a revenue source tied to it. And it's always been a problem for us. It was going to inhibit future growth, good growth.
I saw that also, and I may not be right on this, but it can also go towards rehabilitation of dams and reservoirs. Could that money assist with what we're doing over at the reservoir with the?
Potentially, but the dam is actually, I hate to say this because then the next day it'll lose.
It's in
Knock on
wood when you say
The
it.
last report was it did not have glaring issues. So,
Sounds like from what Mr. Mayor was saying, we got some flexibility there if we go the loss allowance route, that we could do that potentially, I suppose. But we don't have to make a decision for a while, right? I mean,
yeah, we want to get
Errol said you can spend it before 2027.
So commit by December 2024, spend by December 2026.
Got over a year and a half or so to commit.
if we, and again, I'd recommend the wastewater piece of it, that takes engineering, planning, construction, bidding. And so we do need some lead time on going that direction. And even some decision time on, do we try to get an extension to the main interceptor sewer that we're working on, or do we work on the lift station? I think the lift station is the good short-term strategy. And we've known, or, we've been kicking around, what do we do about this lift station for a couple of years? And my fear is if we call it revenue loss and goes into the general fund, then that lift station can be kicked down the road a little bit further. And I think this is our opportunity to target that money and kind of leverage it in and get something done that's going to be an investment and that will reap other rewards beyond having a reliable lift station.
Would you like to see us make a decision by our next meeting potentially?
Yeah, if maybe the services committee, they can talk about, obviously utilities are within their scope of work. And so, but I think it would be good to get a direction so that we can start that process, because it's, especially with that kind of a project, it's complex. It's going to take time to get it out ready to bid it and get it under contract.
That sounds reasonable. What do you think, Mr. Mayor?
It's a good plan.
Put it on their agenda for the next services meeting
Okay.
and take it from there.
And in the event that I'm not at the services committee meeting, when next you meet, I will remind you that we had Pulte oversize their sanitary sewers to make a little room so that we can run a force main from the Cheshire lift station into the Pulte sewer, which then goes down to our new interceptor sewer. So
I think for our next services meeting, we need a basic exhibit of what we're talking about here. And like a cross section, doesn't have to be the whole city, but Little Walnut Creek Interceptor, where the oversizing is tentatively scheduled to go on price, and then kind of a gap between the Cheshire lift station, showing where the Cheshire lift station goes. And I think if we show a visual, it's going to make a lot of sense where our bottleneck is.
Excuse me.
Agreed.
I'm sorry, we're talking about this in the abstract.
All right, let's push for that in services.
Okay.
Mr. Piles.
Will do.
Okay, so after 6, let's go on to the next item. Unless there's any other discussion on that? All good? Okay, thank you. Let's go to the Letts Avenue Sanitary Sewer Maintenance Repair. I think we have Mr. Parkinson here to give us some details on that.
thank you. Late hour, I'll try to be brief. Kathy, if you could please, could you pull up the PDF called Letts Avenue? It's on the OneDrive under the Finance Committee.
And I think someone put some pictures in our packet too here.
Yeah, there's pictures.
Yeah.
The map and the pictures are a few visuals that go along with the story.
All right, which ones is it?
It's called
You can scroll down and go to view online, all the way down.
Finance.
It's in right here.
Yeah. No, sorry about that. You can keep that open, but go back.
Which one do you want first?
Keep that one, the let's do the, okay, I think.
Is that microphone on?
It's there. It's on the side.
That's better. Okay. Thank you. I think we know where we are in the world, but this is Letts Avenue, this is Granville Street, and this is Columbus. And just want to introduce you to a problem that we're struggling with a little bit on Letts Avenue right now. I don't think it's new, but it's come to a point where it probably needs some attention. And the attention it needs is going to come with a relatively large price tag, and that's why we're talking with you about it this evening. So there's a sewer that runs down Letts from east to west. This is Mr. Bream's house, Mr. Hatfield's house, and it runs this way and down this way. In a heavy rainfall event, this sewer surcharges, which means it has more water than it's supposed to, and the water goes above the top of the pipe and into the manholes, and it'll rise until it's deep enough that it can force the water down the system as it's coming in. Problem is when it does that and rises up, it flows up the sanitary sewer services that come from the houses. And so the lowest house in the system gets water in its basement. We call it water in the basement. It's sewage in the basement.
WIB, that's a WIB event,
We
right?
call it a WIB. We call it water in basement or a WIB. So in the last, a couple of weeks ago, we had that big rainfall event. Everything flooded. The drone pictures that Mr. Piles arranged for were pretty startling. This house here experienced a WIB. And it's the lowest house on the lot. It's 98 Letts Avenue. So Dale started talking to me about some things. What can we do? And he actually had this camera back in November, December of last year. So we've got video from basically here and here. And it's pretty interesting stuff. We call them dirty pictures, but yeah, that's it. Kathy, can you pull up some of the photos now?
With this one?
Yeah, let's start with that one.
Kathy, real quick, there's a button next at the top, all the way at the far right, that as you're going through the pictures, you can just scroll through the files. It's
Okay.
kind of behind the picture, just letting you know.
This is an 8-inch pipe. It's an old-fashioned vitrified clay pipe, which is a very rigid pipe, which means it's brittle. And so a plastic pipe might just bend if it starts to get crushed, but a clay pipe will crack and break. That's what this is. This is the top of the pipe that has been crushed and cracked in. All of this cracks and crushes and collapses. This is a total failure. Well, not total because it hasn't completely blocked it, but this is a collapse. This needs to be, you fix these by actually digging them up. They're called point repairs. You go to where it is, you take a backhoe, you dig down to the sewer. They're usually 10, 12 feet deep, hopefully, and you take out the 2 or 3 or 4 sections of pipe that we have in here. You put in a new pipe and you join them all up and you go. So that's a problem again, but it's also a symptom. What I don't have here are the pictures of all the cracks that permeate this entire this entire sewer. I don't know when it was put in the 30s, maybe 30s or 40s, maybe earlier. But the entire system at some point in time will probably start looking more like this than not. But this is the one area where it's really bad. If we can go back to can you go back to the map? That location is right here between East and Hill Street. I'm told that this house right here experienced a web maybe last year, sometime during the summer, perhaps. It's no coincidence that collapse is here and the web was there. I'm about to show you something for here, and there's no coincidence. It's not a coincidence that this defect is opposite of that web as well. Can you pull up the photo that's, yes, thank you. This was the second dot I showed, the yellow dot I showed you, which is in front of 98. That's which had the web. This is actually the service for 111. It's the house across the street. This is an 8-inch pipe right here, and this is their service. So when they built the house at 111 and they ran the sewer service down to the manhole or down to the sewer, they took a hammer and they broke a hole in the side of the sewer and they stuck in the pipe, and it's blocking. It's blocking half of the, half or a quarter of the pipe there. It's just a dam that got put in there. And by the way, this is pretty common how those things got done over the years. This is not unique. You'll find this in a lot of
They took sewer chap, literally.
they call them hammer taps. Is what that's the technical term for this kind of stuff. We can hire a contractor who will run a small saw with a camera down through here, and he can cut that off and fix that. Okay, and that's one of the things we'll do. And then the last picture, Kevin. Thank you. These are roots, and they grow in from the joints. And the next joint downstream, which is 4 feet downstream, you can see that the roots completely cover where the water will flow. Now, these are very fibrous roots. They're very almost spiderweb-like. But what happens is as the sewage flows through them, they filter all the gunk out, and they become a mat. And so they become a point, and they're there now, where the water doesn't actually flow through them, and they slow the water down. Now, if there was one of these in the sewer, no. If you've got these every 4 feet, it impedes the water and helps it back up. And so all these things here, it helps me understand why we have surcharging inlets. And so the solution for this is, well, we cut out all the roots. That's one of the things we do. We spot fix the collapsed pipe. We cut the protruding taps, and there's 2 or 3 of them through this area. And then the big thing we do is we repair, we slip line the sewer. We basically put a pipe in a pipe here, and it's a fabric. It's impregnated with a resin. You inflate it, you cook it a little bit with steam, and that hardens the resin, and you go. A nice brand new, very slippery pipe inside a pipe. It increases the flow capacity, it reduces infiltration. And then when you do that, what we like to do is we like to go to the manholes, and we like to fix all the manholes while we're there and do all of that. And then lastly, we'll put a little, I think they call them top hats. But on each of these services, we'll put something like this liner on it to seal that point where the sewer service comes into the main line, so that infiltration can't get in as well. And it's different. And so this does a couple of things. One, it keeps the water out that you don't want in your sewer, the infiltration and inflow. It adds structural integrity to the pipe when it cures. It'll support that pipe to keep it from collapsing. It eliminates a joint every 4 feet because these socks are continuous. And so the only joints will be at the manholes. So it has a really good benefit. And it comes with a really big price. Can we go back to that? Thank you. So I put together a price to do everything that Dale had TV, which was here, and all of this, and that I was over 300,000, and I talked to Dale, and we said, we can't do that. So Dale and I agreed that the worst sections that we saw start at east and go down to the manhole here at the top of the hill before you turn and go down. And if we did 1, 2, 3, 4 manholes, a spot repair, a couple of protruding taps, and ran the slip line through, it's 200. We did back in the napkin guess is $233,000. So we think that there should be some discussion on this type of work. Something needs done here. If 233 is not available in the budget to do this kind of work, or 234, whatever, we could do it maybe a 2-stage approach where we fix some of these things and clean the roots out and get the sewer as good as we can get it without actually lining it or fixing the manholes. And that comes at a much lesser cost, and then see if that helps.
If we were to spend the whole 300,000, how much would that save us down the road when that other piece that we're not going to do gets to be as bad as the piece that we are going to do? Because if we have to do the process twice, it's going to cost more, right?
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, and the short answer to this is yes, they generally do. And usually what happens in bigger projects, you have economy of scale and you get it
Right
for a little bit less because you're paying for the mobilization. You don't have to pay again for things like that. I anticipate that somewhere along the line, we're going to have to start investing in our sewers because I'm guessing that this is not unique. That the sewers over in the gardens,
Right, yeah.
The gardens probably look a little like that. The sewers all around the square probably look a little like that. And there's probably going to come a time where we're going to have to think about an annual program, like we have an annual street program. We might have an annual program for CCTV work or lining 1,000 feet of sewer every year, and something like that. And at that point, then the costs will sort of just balance out. And there really isn't much flow in this sewer, and it really didn't look nearly as bad as this. This and this, there's a lot of flow that comes through this sewer. That might be the next one I would suggest, because this sewer here only takes these few homes right here, and this one though takes the north half of, or the north quarter of the gardens. Come on down this way. But I don't need an answer today. I just wanted to let you know that we probably need to, as a community, address this problem. It needs it. To what degree? Open for discussion. That's what I want to start, are the conversations. And like I say, we're in the 233, 234 range, as I remember, which is just the cost of the project. The engineering is probably 23, 24, 25,000 to work up the plans and specs, bid it out for you, and get you a contract.
I'd ask Mr. Parkinson to bring this forward, and then I think over the next probably 3 weeks, we'll maybe have more of a, for lack of a better term, like a menu of items, itemized kind of down to, okay, if we do the root clearing, the point repair of the collapsed sections, and trimming back the protruding pipes coming across, this will, at a minimum, probably buy a couple of years. Say it comes back at 100,000, or do we want to bite off $300,000 right now?
And the next course of action is probably moving this again through services, right?
Yeah.
And then take a look at it and make a recommendation.
I would think so, yeah.
Okay.
What's the life of one of those sleeves that you put in with the compound or what have you?
They last a long time.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah.
And are they strong enough that if the clay pipe around them disintegrates or breaks away to support itself without the pipe around it, without the clay pipe around it. Does that make sense? So if they're going inside the clay pipe,
It needs the clay pipe,
it does.
but the
Okay.
clay pipe is not going to dissolve
Okay.
or disintegrate. The clay pipe is going to crush in.
Yeah.
And the
okay.
sleeve will provide that strength to keep it from crushing in.
It won't crush in once it's slip lined.
That's correct.
I can send you guys some YouTube videos that show like actually this process. Pretty cool if you like seeing sewer pipes being lined. I mean, it's like a reverse balloon. I mean, it just kind of folds through and then.
We call it a sock. And yeah,
Exactly.
and you use steam to push the sock, like you turn your inside out, you know, and you push it out and trim them up. After it settles, you go back in with a cutter and reestablish all the surfaces. And there's usually 2 or 3 films involved, you know, a before and an after and a warranty. So
I think Mr. Parkinson brought up a good point about I think we need to start thinking about an annual budget for, at a minimum, assessment. You know, cammering certain sections of town because over time, sewer lines collapse. I mean, the Cheshire Road one is the one that pops in my mind that I'm like, you know, I think we all could probably pick out a few places that we think it's happening. We need to be able to say that and then put a number on what it costs to repair.
It's happening on my street.
It's happening.
We have had.
yeah, I didn't bring it tonight. I was noodling around with this idea of annuals, and you could do a 5-year CCTV rotation where you TV 20% of your sewers every year, so that the oldest picture you had was 5 years old. And I want to say it was like $50,000-$60,000 a year, get you that level. Now, do you need 5 years? Maybe not. Maybe 7's good. Maybe 10's good. You know, if you know what budget can you afford to do? But it isn't onerous. It isn't like you need $250,000 a year, you know, to make something like that happen. So
it's like the robotics analysis we talked about, where you're getting constant feedback so you can place your investment in the right place.
It's also a good investment for the residents too, because those things creep in, nobody knows. We don't know, they don't know. You know, the law absolves us from liability because we don't know. We're liable for a known hazard we don't fix, but if we just don't know, we don't know. All of a sudden somebody's got a backed up basement, which is never pleasant for anybody, because they look to us and we say, sorry, you know. But so to avoid those, which we have, I don't know, 1, 2 a year, probably something like that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parkinson. We're getting short on time. We have a couple items left. We have Director of Finance job posting and the facilities planning scope of work. Mr. Mayor, which one would you like to hit?
I'm going to hit on Director of Finance job posting. So some of you may have read this. I've had quite a few conversations with Kathy over the past year and a half. Kathy is going to be retiring at the end of this year, and pretty tight time range, somewhere between December 1st and December 31st. So we've got that nailed down. We would like to
We need to be sure to get the cake ordered in advance.
we would like to have 3 months of overlap. So if you think September, October, November, and peak budget period times. So we've got Kathy and the new individual in here. One thing we are also looking at is parsing out the council clerk position and some of her other hats that she wears, and really focus on the Director of Finance role. So I think we may even have, you know, some kind of initial budgeting or even potentially a draft of the job posting that we can probably take a look at. Is that on for council tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I could, you should have it in your packet, I think back actually.
It's an individual piece of paper.
Is the position.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks.
We are asking, so we have had a chance to run through the staff and through legal. We are asking the finance committee recommend the council authorize the release of it so we can begin the search. I think if we begin the search in early April, I think that aligns nicely with the mayor's expectations for getting somebody in place The range that we've identified is 65 to 90K. Steve and I worked on that based on, looking at, again, the North Sea salary survey. I did look just a little bit there, a little bit more close at those that are closer to us. They're pretty large jurisdictions, so I don't know if they're comparable per se, but I will say that the median of all of those same jurisdictions that Steve referenced earlier really does put this job somewhere in the 85-ish to $90,000 range. So we think the range is right. And Steve has already updated Chapter 139 to reflect that number. So.
Thank you. I'm sorry we skipped over the sentimental aspect of this. Kathy's been nothing but amazing to work with. But we had to get business items taken care of real quick. There'll be plenty of time for us to celebrate with you. And you're amazing.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Ms. Belcher. Thank you, Mr. Hennessy. Couple minutes left. Mr. Mayor, do you want to touch on facilities planning scope of work?
Yeah, facilities planning scope of work. We're looking at bringing in a consultant / coordinator to help us hit all the necessary timelines with remodeling certain municipal facilities, including the closing on the purchase of the Newman properties, moving our services department, and retrofitting or modernizing our municipal building. There's several key timelines that need to be hit if we still wish to pursue bonding these or putting these all kind of in one package. And we feel like we have about a year to do this work. And we'd like to have management partners manage this process for us. We've had really good initial discussions with them. I think they've submitted or they're going to submit a statement of qualifications and also a proposal to us, hopefully in draft form by next Friday. And at your next council meeting, you'll have that to review.
And potentially approve for April 6th, right?
Yes, hopefully.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, potentially the 6th, although I think if we get it done by the second meeting in April, I still think we're on schedule. Because we won't close on buildings until.
Oh, yes.
In really practical terms, I want another firm to own the risk of hitting all the timelines. I think it's too big of an initiative where we're saying, we're going to manage the inspections, the closing of the property, managing bidding out, space planning, architecture, engineering, get it into construction contract to be able to ultimately put everything in a nice package with a bow on it and hand it to the municipal advisor in our bond council.
Agreed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other items of discussion?
Yes, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Martin. Second by Mr. Neff. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Ms. Belcher.
David Martin,
Yes.
Murray Neff,
Yes.
Cindy Cooper.
Yes.
John Germany,
Yes.
Joe St. John.
Yes.
Tim Goes,
Yes,
6 yeas.
meeting adjourned. Thank you.